It's never fun to fire people, but I learned from the wrong way of keeping the wrong people on and how that starts to affect literally the whole team and the mission. Because leadership is a learned skill. I was being a coward as a leader, but it's unkind to be unclear because the right people are going to be coachable, and those are the ones you want to keep. You got to talk to the person one-on-one. It's going to be uncomfortable for a few minutes, but I promise you it's worth it. If you said it was the last time, you have to follow through and fire their butts, or basically they fire themselves. I love you to death, but you're going to have to go. It's not going to work out. And you can't be like, all right, I know I said last time this was the last warning. That's that whole balance of the be nice and setting boundaries so that the team starts to see, oh, wait, like they're serious. If we're not doing what we're supposed to do, they will weed people out. We can't just take advantage of them.
Do you have a story where you had to fire somebody and it was like a hard decision because they were like maybe with you very long, maybe they're a family member? Like, can you think of a good story and like what actually happened step by step and what got you to the point of firing them?
It's never fun to fire people. You always feel it, but I learned from the wrong way of keeping the wrong people on and how that starts to affect literally the whole team and the mission. And by not stepping up and being a leader and setting those boundaries, how much worse that actually is. And that's something that I continue to remind myself and like my top leadership, which they've learned over time through experience as well. And dude, I still remember the first time we fired someone, and man, it's been 20 years now, but this is probably like
Wow.
16 years ago. I mean, we've owned the company for 20 years, but yeah, it was someone that was a great like worker with our individuals with disabilities, and I actually knew the person through it was like our next door neighbor's brother-in-law at that time. And he would just have these episodes where he would just like lash out on other team members, like not in the way that you're supposed to, and was gossiping about people. We have a no gossip policy now. Some stuff we didn't even know was going on, and we only had like 4 or 5 team members at the time. But I remember I would like have a talk with him, like, hey, we need to make sure this isn't happening. And stuff would get better for like a month, and then it would basically like happen again. And we were so small, and I remember thinking like, well, he's so great with them. He shows up on time every day. He like, what would happen if we got rid of him? How can we replace all these things going through your head? And
Mhm.
then also, my neighbors know him. What are they going to think about me? Really all the wrong things that you should be thinking, but also we're a human being, and we are dealing with humans. So you do care, but to sum it up, I mean, this went on for like, I always tell people when they're like, because leadership is a learned skill. Now this wouldn't go on for more than a month. And I can explain that more later too, but this went on for like 2 more years after that.
Wow. So you
And
held on for a long time.
way too long. I was being a coward as a leader because I was only one at that time that could make the decision. Now I have other leaders that are at the top that can make those calls. And I lost some other good team members, rightfully so, for not doing that. Because if you keep people on that are negative and bringing the team down, even if they're like that all-star player, but they're like toxic, then other great people are going to start leaving, and you'll start losing that unity, which is why I've learned way quicker to address that more head on. And we can talk about ways that we actually like do that intentionally. But with this situation, it took this person, I can't, finally one day he's just totally crashed out. And I think not only like yelled at people, like was just cussing everyone out. I think like cussed me out. It was like you can't
Yeah.
come back from it. And I still remember, that night, I didn't sleep, and I'm like, "Man, when he comes in the morning, I'm gonna meet him there before anyone else shows up and let him know, like, it's over," you know? And it seemed like you're hearing it from the outside in, like, "Oh, it's common sense, it's" but it's weird, like, when you're going through this and you just keep thinking, like, "But they're so great here, like, if" and they'll start to get a little better here if we can just keep working on them, maybe it'll change, but over time when it doesn't, and then once I let him go, by the way, it was like this whole weight that had been on us and the whole company was lifted off. And like you could literally feel it like leave the room
Mm,
and the whole organization and the whole atmosphere. And it's just like any other toxic thing, you know, you get used to it and allow that to become it. Literally, that's how you create a culture. You have to fight for it, but people don't talk about creating a toxic culture. Um, and it doesn't happen overnight. It wasn't like he just crashed out the first. He started off being a great. It was like things would happen here and there, but they kept happening, and it was time to make a decision way quicker, which I didn't, but I still remember once we finally made the call, then I learned all this other stuff that had been happening that I didn't even know about that was like
mm.
just so much gossip and just making up like just it was terrible. And I remember in that moment I'm like, man, like never again, like as a leader, am I going to allow this to happen and like do this disservice to my team and our mission. And if this thing happens, we're going to catch it quicker and we're going to take care of it faster because it's like you're on a ship on the ocean and they're like at night, they're like going under and just secretly like literally drilling holes under your ship. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that's the now. Then they come back up board and it's like they're whatever it is, sweeping the deck, or I don't know. I haven't actually like I've been on
Yeah,
ship, imagine back in the day, but they can be looking great, and it's like, man, our ship's starting to sink. Like we're all gonna go down. If
mm,
we don't get this freaking person off, like that's your mission where you're going, the whole ship's gonna sink. And then he'd be the one like or she or whoever like gossiping like, "Man, the owner's not taking care of the ship. That's why these whole he needs to buy new wood. He bought that cheap wood." Meanwhile, dude's sneaking out at night and like drilling little holes in the bottom of it. Then gets a little side person to start doing it. It's like they make their little side toxic culture teams. And then the good people are like, "Screw this. Like I'm out of here." So, yeah, I'll never forget that. And that was a
so
great lesson to learn.
yeah. So based off that, like it sounds like that experience may have led you into figuring out a new system of firing. So like what are your guys' internal process of or the steps you take in letting somebody go, even if they're a quote good worker?
Yeah, and even hiring, there's been more steps added to that too. But yeah, we don't do what's called like a generic write up, or I don't know. Think of some other words you've had from jobs in the past where it's like it make it terminology they like sometimes make it sound like you're being reprimanded or whatever. It is that, but it's coaching. And it's like, look, once we see something, um, if it's a toxic behavior, we're going to jump on that like really, really quick. And a few things that we make sure we do, and like our head leadership does, is we don't call them out in front of the whole team. So we pull them in one on one. Also, I have my weekly meetings every week with my head leader of Dreamshine, and we go over all this stuff. And like if she was to talk to me and be like, "So and so's been doing this for 2 weeks," I'd be like, "Why did you not?" We don't leave conflict unresolved. We're all busy. There's a million things going on, but you see something like that happening, you're having a quick, at least 5-minute conversation with them that day or the next day. But we're hitting it head on. there's a saying, I didn't say it, I forget who did, but it's unkind to be unclear. And basically, like it's uncomfortable for everyone for just a few seconds. Like you're gonna feel like, man, I have to talk to them. No, because you get into that fight or flight mode. And it's always a million times worth it because the right people are gonna be coachable, and those are the ones you wanna keep. And so the right person, if you talk to them, you're like, "Hey, like you're doing amazing here. I love how you're doing this." And also, and we don't like beat around the bush. We're like specific, like the way when you were working with so and so and they weren't helping like clean up their part of the building or whatever, and you just went over and were like really rudely yelled at them, like, you don't ever do anything, you're lazy. You're like, by the way, we are going to talk to them separately. They do need to step it up, but we don't just yell at people and call each other lazy. Like we do the golden rule, do unto others as you'd want done unto you. We don't talk to each other like that. I love you to death. That type of behavior, that can't continue. And
Mm.
they'll either be like, "Oh my gosh," the right person will be like, "Man, I didn't you're right. Like I didn't even realize I let it build up too much. I was snapping." And we'll also do some additional coaching. Like, by the way, we're not saying that it's okay that the other team members shouldn't be picking up their slack. Like if that's going on, don't start complaining to other team members about it because they're not the ones that can fix it. That becomes gossip. Bring the problem up to the next level of leadership, to like myself or the person above this, like our head leaders, Danielle. Bring it up to her and talk to her directly about it. Like, so and so, we've been having these issues. They're not picking up their part of the thing. Or with you, like video editing, like I'm doing 90% of the work. The other, it's like, no, that's not okay. So we're gonna talk to them before you have to let that like build up, and
Yeah.
explode. Because I've seen it on the other end where they go to leadership and leadership does nothing about it. So then the
Mm.
person finally does vent out or gossip because they're in an unhealthy organization where the leaders aren't actually taking action on the other side of things too. But like in
Mm.
this situation, if someone isn't working out, basically, if they're not willing to grow. So like if you have a talk with them, like in a grown up talk in a nice way, like I love you. Look, you can't keep being 15 minutes late when we do transportation for people with disabilities. We run 17 different routes. Part of what we do is transportation. You get just 5 minutes off. That's the difference between you hit traffic, you're 30 minutes late to picking this individual up. Someone may have a behavior, someone could have a seizure. Like it's that serious. And we'll have to be like, okay, this happened once. We've talked to you about this again. Like, if this happens again, you're choosing to fire yourself. And we'll help make a plan. We've literally made plans with people of set set an alarm on your iPhone. We also, here's a physical alarm clock we bought you. Set 3 backup like we'll help give idea. I'm using kind of like what sounds like basic things, but everything
No.
matters for your culture. But then the key is, if at a point, if they're not willing to grow or change, then you have to, at that point, you can't continue to be like, well, this is the 300th time we're talking about this same thing, which is what I was doing with that person. I throw myself under the bus first. And it's not fun because they may be a nice person, but you have to separate that from the overall mission of what your team is doing, what your company does. And when that does continue to happen, if they're not willing to grow or continually change what needs to change, you have to then be able to follow through and be like, look, you said if this happens again, you're firing yourself if you're late again. We've talked about it 4 times now. We've coached you through it. If it happens again or when, you have to be prepared to, all right, you fired yourself and
Mm.
move forward with it too. Because if you say these empty like threats and then don't follow through with them, no one's really going to take you serious either. And by the way, the rest of your team is going to respect that more because all the people that are showing up on time, or I'm just using like cleaning up their areas, or on point with their video editing and having it done and killing it and having it turned in on time, versus the ones that are just slacking and dragging their feet. To know like, man, this company cares enough to weed those types of people out, they're going to respect you more like as a leader and want to work harder, and then you're going to attract more people like that, you know?
Mm, mm,
Does that make sense? So yeah, at a point we talk to them one on one, we talk to them respectfully, we coach them through it, and if they're not willing to grow or change, like with an attitude of not like, you know, screw you for telling me what to do, and that they we have to be able to be adults that want to grow and change and hear just not what we want to hear, but also what we need to hear. And if they're not
yeah.
willing to change a point, then you need to let them go. And if they
Mm,
are, we'll freaking take them as far as they want to go. I love bringing people. I have so many people that have been with us for a lot of years that started in this position and are now at higher levels of leadership, higher than people like with MBAs that have applied to their position because they were
that's
willing to want to learn, hungry, humble, smart with that emotional intelligence, which is all so important, and attitude. We literally factor in the importance of attitude, um, even when doing raises. We factor in performance plus attitude plus time plus the
mm,
responsibilities of your overall position. And that's
mm.
how we factor in our raises too. Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, so it sounds like you have a very clear kind of system for, you know, letting somebody go. It takes a long time, assuming they're willing to keep growing and learning and having a good attitude. So,
And just real quick on that too, to let people know, some situations, you know, will coach people through it. But if you have some crazy thing happen where someone's totally toxic, like extremely, you don't need to keep coaching. You kick their butt. You know what I mean? You need to
mhm,
guard and protect that. I keep using the ship analogy. There's some situations we've had where they've totally like endangered our individuals with developmental disabilities at a level that was like beyond not like a training thing, to where we're like that moment they were met by. I mean, you know, we had one lady that came back with alcohol on her breath after driving all of our individuals and was gone. And we helped, by the way, love her into rehab. And actually, a cool story with that. And I'm not mentioning anyone's names, but that person went through rehab, was willing to walk the talk, came back, reapplied, and was willing to come in, does breathalyzers 3 times a day. We have a whole regimen. Has been back, been totally sober for like 18 months and is doing
wow,
incredible. Yeah, I totally forgot about that.
that is a
Always
picture
have.
perfect example.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's full blown strategic empathy on display, strategic empathetic leadership. Because I mean, I think 99% of people probably would have jumped to fire her. I mean, that's pretty crazy, drinking and driving.
We
And
did. Yeah, we did. Don't get me wrong. We did on the spot fire her, but
got it.
also
You gave her another chance though. That's
there
awesome.
there's
Total
the
redemption.
relationship that was built where she stayed in touch with our head leader and went through rehab because we had a long talk with her and our head leader did, even after the firing, because there was so much mutual respect and she totally owned it.
Oh, it's
But
beautiful.
we still couldn't have. So she went through rehab and then she stayed in touch after and then reapplied. And I remember we put a whole new protocol of, you know, if she's willing to do this, we'll have to do this, and she has been, and that's an
That's
amazing
awesome.
story. That doesn't
And I'm
always happen that way, but I'm just saying, that there's examples where you need to let people go right away,
of
and
course.
there's times to coach people and stuff too. But yeah, it's cool that it
That's a
worked out
really
for the person's back.
story. I'm sure she'll, assuming she stays sober and clean, like she'll probably end up being one of your best employees because she took responsibility, and your business offered her a way to change something that was a bad habit that had nothing to do with the job. It's like she's growing as a person. She's no longer drinking and she redeemed herself. She probably is like extra meticulous at this point because she doesn't want to mess up. And that's
Yeah.
a really great story, man. So that
I
leads
think
me into the next question. All right, go ahead.
well, you just made me think, you said growing as a person. That's another important part of leadership that I always look at too is all the things we're teaching people, it's how to get better at the position, but we're also teaching skills of how to that how to develop, of how to resolve conflict that you can then take throughout your whole life. I mean, we have people on our team that we share our wins and losses at every meeting. They're like, from the stuff we learned here, it taught me to like be able to have better communication and like resolve conflict with my husband or my kids. And I'm not like, how dare you bring that up? Everything should only be about dream shine. I'm
Right.
like F yeah, like that's freaking awesome.
That is
And
awesome.
that's another huge reward that I don't think we realize, the impact of building a company and being a leader and stuff is you are also blessed to be able to be in a position. It's not an easy one, but to build other leaders to be better versions of themselves in all areas of life and help equip them with those tools. And I think that's amazing.
Yeah, I think that separates the decent entrepreneurs from the great runs because you cannot build a big business without a good culture and good people. It's literally impossible. You can make it to $1 million a year kind of alone and like a one or two people, but to go to that next level, it's
Mhm.
it's very hard to do it. Like it's almost impossible, especially your type of business. There's just no way.
Yeah, yeah, we're dealing with physically working with people with all kinds of developmental disabilities at every level where you need like human beings. Yeah. So it's
Yeah.
like it's an ongoing thing. But yeah, culture.
Mhm.
People think you can't just write like these are our 10 core
Right.
values. You should have them, what your things are, but you have to continually fight for them and protect them. And you're going to screw up. I share my screw ups all the time. And we say like mistakes are okay as long as you continue to make new ones. It's an important thing.
So, talk to me about the difference between a leader who is kind and empathetic versus somebody who's, kind of like the disciplinary, like no bullshit attitude, cutthroat Steve Jobs. How do you how do you teeter-totter that? How do you navigate those dynamics? Because you had mentioned being too nice can lead to people like not getting the work done, but also being too disciplinary can lead to people maybe not having the right heart posture. So, how do
Yeah.
you navigate that as a CEO? You have a very unique business, Mark. I mean, you're dealing with people with developmental disabilities, and you have to manage and make sure that the team can navigate these very, I mean, I was there. It's not a You're not
Yep.
having a light day of work at
Yeah.
Dream. There's
Yeah.
always something going on.
Like behavioral issues, medical, seizure. Yeah. Yeah, no, there's a lot going on. There's so many rewards with it too.
Amen.
Um, but also you have to realize too that people can come in that have the right heart that want to help people, but then they can end up not being great people to other people. Kind of like I was talking about with that first person that we had, was great with the individuals, but not with the other like coworkers like at all. Steve Jobs is a great example to use. I didn't personally know him. I respect the amazing things he's done. I've heard, he would come in and kind of like be super almost like, I don't know, what would be not like a dictator because he definitely like enforced tons of creativity, but I think just came in full force. Like there's times with Elon Musk who I love and respect that they say times gets into like demon mode and is just ripping everyone apart. And I get it because you do need he's the wealthiest dude, and I mean look how many things he's created. However, I've also learned from people like the CEO of Chick-fil-A, which there was a time where they were like, we're going to have it where people come in, teenagers work here at a fast food place. They're kind, they're respectful. We teach them leadership. And I mean, you go to a Chick-fil-A, they're nice, they're polite. It's one of the most profitable, I think, non-public franchises that's out there still to this day. They have a whole leadership program. They take kids from high school, help put them even through college. They put them in these amazing like incredible high level leadership classes to be working like at the drive through. And some could be like, well, that's too nice. That's too, but also they have on the flip side, the same thing like us, like they have a no gossip policy or like a no negative. Like if you're negative and toxic, like they'll do the same thing. They'll coach you and they'll weed you out and they'll protect their ship if you're not. And also they work hard. So if you're not grinding, if you're not like, don't get it twisted just because you're nice. Like we all work our butts off too. And we reward, it's important to reward people and to care for them. And you have to be able to be watching your team and look like we're all exhausted. So let's lean even more in on some motivation right now and ways to lift the team up. Or, people are kind of getting a little out of control, so it's time to no, we got to get back here. We have to get on. And there's times you do have to light a fire under people's butts too. So it's not just one or the other. It's really like the strategic empathy. Like you're doing it because you care, and also you have to be strategic and set those boundaries up and love people, and also you've got to keep moving the mission forward too, or else I always say like when it comes to Dream Shine, which is our company, I'm like the first three questions we ask when it comes to Dream Shine, not to ourselves, like what's best for Dream Shine? Because like if there's no Dream Shine, it's like the ship, then none of us exist here. We're not able to serve any of our individuals. If we're bankrupt, we can't help anyone. Then it's like what's like best for the individuals that we serve and what's best for our team. And like we ask those questions, and we go down that list. And
Mm.
if something's happening that like, look, I love you, you're amazing, but what you're doing here, it could be an amazing person. I mean, even when we open our second location, and you may have someone that's just like constantly, I don't know how you're going to do this other location or this innovative idea. It's not going to work out. And they just start bringing in fear and worry and drama. And there's times where you gotta be like, I love you, you're amazing, but at a point you either have to get on board with where we're going or you got to get the hell out of here because you're gonna bring everyone else down. And we don't have time to keep dealing with that. When we'll talk to you nicely, and then at the flip side of that, someone's gonna go above and beyond or maybe having a horrible thing happen in life, and we're going to walk them through that. We've had people going through stuff where they were taking care of like a sick spouse, and we were having meals, like we would deliver meals to their house. Team members would get them stuff. They would bring them stuff. Um, this type of stuff, it always makes me like tear up. I don't know why, but so it's a combination of both, man. And
That's beautiful.
and you have to keep your thumb on the pulse of it all and keep creating different systems, that you continually oversee. and
Where
just
does
keep
that
this.
come from? That desire to do something that might seem minor, but it makes such a big difference where you mentioned somebody's going through a hard time with their family and then, you're helping Uber Eats or pay for the meals or get a meal service. Like, what drives that? And is that like a you thing or is this just something you're instilling across the company?
No, it's a culture. So now it's beyond me. My head leaders and stuff will already, so I'll have our weekly meeting and they'll be like, because we're close to like 40 plus team members now. Um, and
Wow.
there's so much going on. And so they'll be like, so and so's blah 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 was in the hospital, and and before I even, and they're like, and Mark, we already had them send, not only did Dreamshine send flowers, we realized that their daughter, who's 17, was going to be home alone, so we had food sent to their house. And I'm not like, we didn't have the $80 in our budget. You didn't run that. I'm like, that's amazing. I love you. I love that. Thank you guys for doing that. So they're doing that's the whole like delegating your mindset. It's just been so embedded by what I started by doing at a certain point in time and then continually taught these things. Um, Same way with different ways we recognize people's birthdays and just do different things like intentionally. Um, it's just important, man. It's just important. And it takes more time, but I think the ROI of it, because you actually do care, comes back exponentially. And it does become part of your culture. And then we'll have times where things will happen and other team members will like do stuff for other team members, you know? And it's, trust me, there's plenty of times where we're fighting through drama and putting out fires, and it's not just all roses and sunshine every day, but we have each other's backs, man. And that's
That's
an
beautiful.
important thing.
I love that. That is very touching. Let's say, you had a good team member, but they kept messing up and you went through the protocols of coaching them, having those hard conversations. Maybe they were likable, but they just weren't growing, you know? Like
Mhm.
after you fire them, do you have like a meeting with the team? Like what is so the trust
Great
is
que
still strong? Like what's the
Yeah,
process there? I'm very curious.
we do, based on, because, when in doubt, I always say over communicate versus under communicate, because what usually happens is when things like that happen, the human mind just defaults to like the worst case scenario. And sometimes you may lose someone, maybe because I say at a point they fire themselves. That's what we say, because we usually coach them to a point where it's like, if this happens again, we've talked about it, you're choosing. But anyway, whether they fire themselves, or sometimes you may have someone that got fired and then the same week maybe someone literally has a crisis and they have to quit, and the next week someone, their spouse just found out that they're relocating to a whole other country for the Air Force and they have to move out in 2 weeks. So you can have like 3 people leave in the same 2-week period. Maybe one was fired, and then other people start to think like, "Oh my gosh, something must be wrong with Dreamshine or the leadership." And so like if you say nothing, they'll start clumping all 3 of those things together. Then you might just start losing people literally because you're losing people. We've had that happen before too. And so based upon the situation, we'll have a talk usually with a team or like one on one. Now, never do we just throw people under the bus and like, because we do the golden rule, but we'll be realistic. Like, hey, this team member was texting and driving our vehicle with 12 people with developmental disabilities in it. And We have cameras in all the vehicles. They were texting and texting and rear-ended another vehicle. Thank God no one got hurt. That's why they're not here today. We love them. We wish them the best in life. That's not okay. Like literally people that we serve could have died, or they could have died, or God forbid someone else could have got hurt. Not to mention 85, $90,000 vehicles that we have. Our insurance is this affects all of us. That's not okay. So that person's gone. And by the way, our head leader will be like, if any of you have follow-up questions, we're not gossiping. We're not talk. You can come and ask me one-on-one and I'll be happy to talk to you about it. But we're all grown up, so we're letting you know what happened, and we're all going to move forward. And we're not going to sit here every week and trash that person. We're going to move on, and here's how we're going to do it. But no, that's not okay. You can't freaking text and drive and rear end someone when you're especially on your own time. I don't recommend doing it in your own life, but that's up to you. While you're driving our company vehicles and transporting the safety of people with disabilities, we don't do that. So we're going to fire your butt. You're going to fire yourself. That's not okay. And so we'll let the team know. But then I think it's also cool. We've had them come and thank afterwards one-on-one, like, thank you. Other places I've worked for, someone may just randomly be gone and we don't have a clue what's happening or not happening. And we're not saying we need to know every detail and get into drama and all that. It's just that open communication helps us to all just sort of be on the same unified mission. And then we're all moving forward. We're not going to, and I think it's good people know too that say something happened and I was to get fired or leave, like this company's going to talk about quickly what happened, but they're not going to sit around and keep trashing me. And they're going to move forward and move on like grown-ups should, and be respectful. But that piece is I don't think I've ever talked about this before. But I think that's a really important piece, because
I
you
agree.
choose what and how you want to share. Sometimes you don't have to get into every, but you at least let them know enough that they need to know, to feel like they're in the loop enough for the communication to move forward, to not just start coming to their own conclusions, which by the way are going to usually be a million times worse than what happened, because our brain just starts defaulting to the worst case scenarios.
That was a really good answer. Last thing, what would you say to, the entrepreneur, the CEO, maybe they're kind of newer to running a business, 5, 10 years in, and they think they should let someone go, but they've been putting it off for months or years, maybe. um, what would you say to them? What would be your advice to them?
I mean, I've done it myself too. Depending on the situation, you need to start by one-on-one, not in front of everyone else, addressing them and having that uncomfortable conversation. Um, and even throw yourself, being like, look, I should have been on this even more. I take accountability as the owner, as the leader, that I wasn't addressing this and making this as serious as it has been. And I'm sorry that I let this go for 2 years and didn't jump on this and start coaching this. But I need you to know, moving forward, things are changing, and I love you. You're amazing. And you separate the person from the behavior, but don't beat around the bush. Like, you just need to start working harder or doing better, or be a better team player. Like and don't address the whole team and say like because everyone's going to assume you're talking to everyone else. You got to talk to the person one-on-one. It's going to be uncomfortable for a few minutes, but I promise you it's worth it. And you have to literally tell them like, look, I love you. Here's the thing that needs to change, whatever it may be. Like, Clients are reaching out to you all the time and you're taking 5 hours to get back to them. We get back to everyone within an hour. Whatever it may be for whatever you're doing with your company. That's just an example. This whole taking 5 hours to get back to people, that can't happen anymore. You have to make sure that whatever you're doing, you're making time, you're returning their call or their text or their email, whatever, within an hour, because that's what all of us do here. I'm going to be following up with you if this isn't continually happening or changing. I love you to death, but you're going to have to go. It's not going to work out. I'm sorry for the past 2 years. I've been letting this go on. I've been being a coward as a leader. I've been learning more. We're all still learning. We're all growing, but this isn't okay. This has to change. And by the way, this is the most important part, Anton, because this is probably what's most likely going to happen. There's a chance they'll start nailing it, getting back to everyone in an hour, and you'll keep moving forward. There's a chance they may do it for a week, and then things will start sliding back.
Mm.
That's when you have to be like, you have to follow through, and you can't be like, all right, I know I said last time this was the last warning. I'm going to give you one more. This has to change. If you said it was the last time, you have to follow through and fire their butts, or basically they fire themselves. And it needs to be also at times an example to the team. That's that whole balance of the being nice and setting boundaries, so that the team starts to see, oh wait, like they're serious. Like if we're not doing what we're supposed to do, they will weed people out. We can't just take advantage of them. Some of them don't know they're taking advantage of them yet because they haven't been coached or told that you can't keep doing this and have the follow through. But you have to be willing to then follow through. And as I say, they fire themselves, but actually fire them and move onward and upward. And I know it's hard. I know it's not easy. It's not fun, but it's the best and only way you're going to grow to that next level and build that culture and that leadership that's just freaking phenomenal, that is going to take you and your mission totally to a whole other level.
Let's go. Very good advice.